All right, I'm here with Varun. Varun, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Andrew?
Good. So you recently sold a Shopify app for six figures on acquire.com.
Yes,
Is that accurate to say?
that is accurate.
All right. And then for people that don't know you, do you want to just give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hey guys, I'm Varun. I'm a co-founder of Beam Commerce. We make Shopify apps that do a couple of things, but we're mostly focused on upselling and cross-selling. So if you're a Shopify merchant and you want to generate more revenue, you can check out our apps, Aftersell or Upcart.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this specific product, Product Quiz Builder, you got 113 reviews. This looks like a good application. What made you decide to build this?
Yeah, so actually we bought it from another company. It was an agency in the Netherlands, and they were trying to sell off the app to sort of focus on a bigger project. And we really like the category. We really like the build quality. We thought we saw a lot of potential to grow it, so that's why we acquired it.
Oh, so you're a serial acquire. How many other products have you acquired, if I can ask?
Yeah, so we've done 4 transactions all on Acquire. So we bought this company or this product. We also sold to others, and then just recently we sold this quiz builder as well. So there's 4 right there.
Right on.
Yeah.
So I have to apologize in advance for making you create multiple seller accounts.
It's actually better that way. The emails are more, focused. We don't get spammed with too many things.
Yeah, the fun fact behind that was I actually assumed entrepreneurs had one startup they were focused on, and
yeah,
man, was I wrong. So we'll get that fixed soon. Okay, so you acquired this and then you resold it. That's incredible. Walk me through just kind of that thought process. Is that kind of your firm's strategy? You acquire, I assume, improve, grow the product, and then resell?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's our strategy, but that is what happened in this case. It was a similar sort of thought process to, I guess, the company that we originally acquired it from. They sold to focus on their bigger products, and we did the same. It just felt like if we had, one less app to focus on, especially this one, which is a little bit more technically complicated and involved, it would allow us to grow better and faster on our other products.
Nice. And so you sold 4 different things on acquire.com. Is that correct? Can I just confirm that?
So I've bought 1 and sold 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you walk me through maybe like how long did it take each one to buy and then to sell?
Yeah. So I guess it definitely it varies. I would say the buying one was relatively fast. I mean, we just had one target in mind. It was just about getting to the right terms that would satisfy both parties. That one maybe took 3 weeks, if I recall correctly. And then for the selling, I felt it was easier to sell the smaller products. They were in the 10 to 20K range. Those were faster. And I would also say maybe 2-3 weeks. And then this most recent sale took longer. It took about 2 months.
Nice. That makes sense as it was larger, but that's awesome, man. I love to hear those stories. It always surprises me when I hear people just buying so many different products and being both a buyer and a seller. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, definitely not expect to be doing this a year and a half ago, but it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. So let's focus on this, specific the sale of this business, even though you did buy it. And maybe you can kind of culminate all of I just want to kind of get the journey of you going to acquire.com. How was it like?
Yeah.
Okay, so you decide to sell the product you list on acquire.com. What was your initial reaction? Let's pretend it was your first time. What happened? How did people start reaching out? What happened after you go live?
Yeah, so when you go live, I mean, for us and for all my experiences, it's been relatively quick. I would say within a couple of hours, you get people reaching out for more information, and then you accept their request, you decline their request. I would say it's definitely faster. I think for the smaller apps, I think that's probably just because there's less buyers that can afford to buy a larger company, which makes sense.
Yeah, and it's kind of true with any asset specific homes. Maybe I'm terrible with the analogies, but when you see a house worth $100 million or $200 million, they got a list of 20 people that can afford that.
Absolutely.
So as the asset gets bigger, sometimes your buyer pool can get smaller and everyone can afford I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a lot more people that can afford, a 4-figure acquisition compared to a 6-figure acquisition. It's a
Yeah.
sizable difference. Okay, so you have buyers reaching out. How do you vet the buyers? What was your process to ensure that you weren't wasting your time on people that weren't necessarily the best fit?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing is sort of like what the buyers report about themselves. So like oftentimes they have like a revenue range, and there are some requests that are outside like your listed price and the revenue range. For example, let's say we were selling for like 500K. You might still see some buyers who are saying like they can only do acquisitions between 0 and 100K. So in that case, you can pretty quickly filter them out. Second step is just like a quick Google search, like who are these people? What's their background? Have they done any similar acquisitions in the past? Things like that. You can kind of get a sense for how legitimate or how serious a buyer is from those kind of things.
Nice. That's good. That's good feedback. And then, okay, so you have a lot of buyers. You vetted them. How did you land on the buyer that eventually acquired this app?
Yeah. So actually, what happened was the acquirer that acquired this app, we had sold him a previous app before. So he reached out, he saw the listing, and he was like, "Hey, I'm also interested in this." So I mean, that was something I didn't realize. I didn't realize that he would be interested in this app as well. In retrospect, I definitely should have reached out to him. But yeah.
Nice. Well, glad it worked out. How quickly did you move from say LOI to close?
Yeah, so with this app, it was pretty quick. Like we had an existing relationship with the buyer from the previous transaction. I trusted him, and I knew he does business pretty quickly. So I would say, honestly, maybe within like maybe 10 days.
That's fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think trust and just goodwill is just so important with acquisitions, because if a buyer says they're going to do something and they're experienced, it just makes the whole process so much easier.
Yeah.
Especially if you've worked with them in the past.
And I think one thing that helped here was like because of our relationship with the buyer, we elected not to go do escrow at all. Like he just wired the funds. So that saves a lot of time. I know escrow otherwise it's quite the process. We had done that before as well. So
Oh dang! I highly recommend escrow to everyone listening.
I should say that as well. Everyone who's like considering an acquisition, do escrow. This was our case where we had the trust and we had the past experience.
Yeah, I'll approve it in that instance, but never ever acquire anything without
Yes.
escrow. I've unfortunately seen some disputes over that, which were luckily resolved, but escrow just especially if you're not comfortable with the person, but you were. So I'm really glad to hear that worked out. In terms of due diligence, so Shopify apps specifically, due diligence on Shopify apps is usually pretty straightforward. Can you, or maybe it's not, can you walk me through just kind of the due diligence process that you do with Shopify apps, and then maybe how the buyer for this app did due diligence?
Yeah. So the process that I've done is basically just trying to see it from the merchant's point of view first. So like really deeply understand the product and the problem that it's trying to solve. So install the app, try to use it, like set it up, see all the features that it has. How is the user experience? All these kind of things. Like when you figure that out, you can also see like are there potential rooms for improvement here? Like maybe the UI UX isn't great, or like the app is a little bit slow to load, things like that. And then the next thing I would look at is like the specific category or market. So Shopify apps, there's like I think over 8,000 of them now. So there's quite a lot of different categories and different needs that are being served there. Some categories are a lot more competitive than others, and some categories have a lot more potential than others as well. So sort of just like figure out like what are the keywords that are most relevant for that app. What do people search for when they try to find that app, and then figure out that competitive space, right? Like what's the potential there? Is it too crowded? Maybe is there room to grow?
You put the customer hat on and you act as if you're the customer with that problem.
Yeah.
How do they find it? How are they gonna review it?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably. Yeah, I think that's like a really helpful way to look at it, because like that's how your customers would look at it too, right? Like it's just a sort of natural way. If you're able to put yourself in their shoes, it's very helpful.
Yeah. So you're kind of secret shopping something you're going to buy, where, and I recommend this to all, buyers is, use the product, like research reviews, see what other customers are saying.
Yeah.
All that stuff. sometimes you can find good, bad stuff. Like, hey, I don't like this thing about the application or the company or whatever it may be. That could be a growth opportunity, a red flag. Or, you see a lot of just really happy customers and it's very healthy business. But just doing that, simple due diligence. I love how you brought that up. Okay, moving on. So you get an LOI, you get the asset purchase agreement signed, transfer over the assets. Did you have any sort of transition
Yeah.
period planned with the buyer? What did that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had two things. One was that we agreed to provide our customer support person to the buyer for, I think it was a period of 3 months. So I think that was helpful for them to also just like get familiar with the app and the sort of customer support requests and things like that before they take it on themselves. And then second was, there was just like the general questions and support. Like we kind of agreed, I don't remember the exact terms, but it was something like for the next, I would say about a month or so after the close, we would, be open to answering questions or providing any guidance or advice.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, because anytime you buy something, there's always going to be some additional. I always say it's not like handing over cars or keys to a car. Like, here you go, you're on your own. There's
Yeah.
always just some customer with a weird discount plan or
Yeah, for
support
sure.
they don't understand or
Yeah.
some feature and you break it and you're like, I don't know what I did. And you're like, oh, it's just to you, it's like, oh, just touch that one button and it's fixed. To the buyer, they're spending 10 hours trying to figure it out without you.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I did this time and I would recommend is create like a Slack channel between you and your team and the buyer and their team. So then like your customer support person can talk to their customer support people. You can, the product person can talk to their product person. That way it's not like everyone's going through you. Like I have like 100 email thread from before the Slack channel about like all the different questions and things. So I think it's a better way to manage your time and to make the transition process cleaner if you have like both teams being able to talk to each other.
Yeah, I especially recommend that for larger acquisitions as well. Just to keep the deal moving, because there's a saying like you always want to be selling until the deal actually closes. And what I mean by selling is you're making progress, you're keeping momentum, data requests are being fulfilled all the way into a close. And a Slack room is a great way to do that, because email, you can kind of wait 2 hours. Slack gives you, I don't know, when I get a Slack message, I feel like I got to answer it like immediately.
Yeah, same.
Maybe I got to work on that. All right. So what are you doing now? I assume you're probably acquiring more stuff. Or are you selling more stuff, or what are you up to these days?
Yeah, I would say like we're pretty focused on growing our existing products, after sell and upcart. But with that said, like I'm still browsing acquire, and I'm sure if another exciting opportunity pops up, I'll take a look at it.
Nice. And then I guess I always like to ask this question to everyone I bring on the podcast, but given just like your experience, on the buy side and the sell side,
Yeah.
buying startups, selling startups, if you had to give just like 3 tips to someone entering the space, what would that be?
Yeah. So I've spoken about my experience a little bit on Twitter. I'll try to recap, I think, what I said. So on the buy side, I think first thing is like really make sure you understand the product and the market. And it's pretty difficult, like if you haven't had experience, but I think like just try to get as deep and as obsessed as you can about what's going on there. I feel like without that, it can lead to some issues if you do close, because you might not be able to grow that product and you might run into things that you wish you knew beforehand. On the sell side, I would say try to talk to as many potential buyers as possible. And also, I think if you can sort of leverage different offers against each other, that's pretty helpful. If you only have one buyer, they have all the leverage. But if you have 3 or 4, then you can say, hey, this person offered me this with these terms. What do you think? Can you do better than that?
I could not agree with you more. I just want to thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people, when they list startups on just any marketplace or really just building any startup, they feel like someone's going to come to them with a big check. Like, you have to talk to buyers. Like, you have to get on the phone. You have to get them interested. You have to sell them on the growth opportunities, the things that you have done right, the things you haven't done right. You have to respond to data requests quickly. And then that's how you get multiple buyers. And there's a quote, if you have one buyer, you have no buyers. So
Yeah.
you always want to assume the buyer is the buyer until they are not. So follow up with buyers, get on calls with buyers, build goodwill. So I love that tip. I couldn't recommend it more. All right,
Absolutely.
you got one more tip for buyers and sellers.
Let me think. There's so many things. It's hard to like say on the spot, you know. I guess one thing is like to perhaps like people in tech and VC say like sort of to raise before you really need to, like raise before before you actually like are in needs of funds, or if you're desperate. And I think that's sort of like with the leverage thing as well. Like if you're doing well and you are considering selling your product, selling your app, then maybe just list. Like you don't know what people offer, and you'll definitely get better options if you list earlier when you are having like really good growth versus like, okay, my product is now like maybe flatlined or plateaued, then I should list then. You honestly, like, I feel like you never really know uh, in terms of like the buyer universe that's available. There's definitely like a lot more than I expected, and lots of the acquisitions that happened with me and that I've experienced are not what I had predicted before.
That's great advice. Well, Varun, thanks so much for coming on this podcast. If people want to learn, more about your story and just find you on the internet, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can check out my Twitter. It's at Var Kundra, VARKUNDRA, and then they can also head to our products. So if you go to aftersell.com, we have a Shopify app that helps with post-purchase upselling. And then our second product is Upcart, which is a sliding cart drawer.
Right on. Well, I'll put those in the show notes. So if anyone wants to check those out, and thanks again for coming on the podcast. And congrats on all the success, man. Multiple acquisitions. Love it.
Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here.
Cheers.
Cheers.